Let's talk about Octavia Living Thesis. This is an 8/8 elemental octopus that costs 8 and 2 blue, so 10 mana, and it costs 8 less to cast if we have 8 or more instants or sorceries in our graveyard. It has ward 8, so that means if it becomes targeted by a spell or ability, an opponent has to pay 8 more mana to target this. It also has Magecraft. Whenever we cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, target creature has base power and toughness 8/8 until end of turn. So this can be a very powerful commander. We can get Octavia out early with cards like Thirst for Discovery, Thirst for Meaning, and Compulsive Research. Each of these cards are going to let us draw 3 cards, and then if we don't discard a specific card, we have to discard 2 cards. And discarding 2 cards is not a bad thing for us because we can end up discarding an instant or sorcery to help get to those 8 instants or sorceries we can use to cast our commander. For 1 mana, we have Thought Scour, Dream Twist, and Tome Scour. Thought Scour at instant speed lets us mill a player, and we get to draw a card. We can choose us, and hopefully mill an instant or sorcery. Dream Twist is going to have target player put the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard, so we're going to mill 3, and we can later use this as a flashback, so for 1 extra mana, we can cast this from our graveyard. And Tome Scour is really sweet. We can have a player mill 5 cards for 1 blue mana, which would be us. And then there's Strategic Planning, Curate, and Time Scheming. Pretty much we're going to look at the top cards of our library. We can put any of them in our graveyard. Some we can put into our hand, some we can put back on top of our library, but most importantly, we're putting cards into our graveyard, which is going to help us cast Octavia even sooner. And if we need to get our cards back from the graveyard, we do have 2 options, Flood of Recollection and Archaeomancer. We can get an instant or sorcery from our graveyard back to our hand, so if we really need something from our graveyard, these are going to be the ways to do it. The removal in the deck is pretty sweet. Let's talk about Negate, You Find the Villain's Lair, and Rewind. These are all counter spells, so if our opponent has a huge threat, we can deal with it instantly, no pun intended, but if they have creatures already out, we have cards like Raven Form and Resculpt. These are great cards to deal with creatures or artifacts, which blue does not do very well, so you can see that Raven Form is a sorcery speed, but Resculpt is an instant. It does give them a 4/4, but if they have a powerful artifact and we need to take care of it, this is going to be our answer. Dealing with their creatures, we're going to have Curse of Swine, Aetherize, and Aether Spout. So if their creatures are attacking us, we can take care of that, or if we just need to exile whatever creature they have, we just have to pay X into this, and then they're going to get a 2/2 boar, which is a way better deal for us. When it comes to drawing cards in the deck, this is my favorite part of Magic. We have Deep Analysis, Rush of Knowledge, and Treasure Cruise. We can draw 2 cards with Deep Analysis. Rush of Knowledge is great whenever we have our commander on the battlefield. We get to draw 10 cards for 5 mana, and Treasure Cruise is really good because it has Delve, so if we exile up to 7 cards, we get that discount for the colorless mana in the spell, and we can end up drawing 3 cards for 1 blue mana. Some of my favorite enchantment spells when drawing cards is Verity Circle, Reconnaissance Mission, Insight, and Mind Unbound. Verity Circle is an underrated way to draw cards. If our opponent's creatures tap and they're not attacking, we get to draw a card. Reconnaissance Mission is really good for us because we have ways to make our creatures unblockable, and we can also make them 8/8s, and then on top of that, we're going to draw a card whenever we deal a player combat damage. Insight is great because whenever an opponent plays a green spell, you draw a card. That way, it's not like Rhystic Study where they get the option to pay 1 mana, we just get to draw. And then Mind Unbound is a card I never see, but for 6 mana, at the beginning of our upkeep, we're going to put a lore counter on Mind Unbound. Then we're going to draw a card for each lore counter on Mind Unbound. So we pay 6 mana, and our next turn we get to draw 1 card. The next turn we get to draw 2 cards, etc., etc. This gets us a huge amount of cards as long as it's left alone. Speaking of our unblockable creatures, we have Slitherblade, Triton Shorestalker, Mistcloaked Herald, and Invisible Stalker. What's great about these is that yes, they are 1/1s, but whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, or even copy it, we get to make a creature an 8/8. So now this 1/1 becomes an 8/8 that we paid 1 to 2 mana for, and it's unblockable. We can also make our commander unblockable with cards like Slip Through Space and Rogue's Passage. So if we need to deal commander damage, these are going to be the ways to do it. We can also make a lot of tokens in this deck with cards like Talrand Sky Summoner and Murmuring Mystic. Whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, we're going to get a 1/1 or a 2/2 creature. What's great is that these creatures have flying. We can make them 8/8s, so they have evasion already. And next, let's talk about Rise from the Tides, Whispering Wizard, and Hard Evidence. Rise from the Tide is going to get us a 2/2 black zombie that's tapped for each instant and sorcery in our graveyard, which is going to be a lot. So let's say it's at least 8. We pay 6 mana for 16 total power. We can even make one of those an 8/8 or multiple of them 8/8s whenever we're casting our instants and sorceries. Whispering Wizard is really cool because whenever we cast a non-creature spell, so this can be an artifact or enchantment, we're going to create a 1/1 spirit creature token with flying, but it only triggers once each turn. So that means we can later cast an instant on someone else's turn to trigger this again. And Hard Evidence is a great card in this deck. This is a sorcery, so it's already going to feed our graveyard for our commander. We will create a 0/3 crab creature token, so we can later turn that into an 8/8, and we're able to investigate, which makes a clue token, which we can later pay to and sacrifice it to draw a card. This is like my favorite card in the deck. Well, actually, let's talk about my favorite card in the deck. That would be Willbreaker. So for 5 mana, we get a 2/3 human wizard. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes the target of a spell or ability you control, gain control of that creature for as long as you control Willbreaker. Now, if we look back at our commander, it says whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, target creature has base power and toughness 8/8 until end of turn. So this means we can target our opponent's creatures and we can gain control of them as long as we control Willbreaker. These two are awesome together. And finally, I want to talk about Runechanter's Pike. So the equipped creature has first strike and gets +X/+0, where X is the number of instants and sorceries in our graveyard. The equip cost is 2 and it also costs 2 to cast. So if we at least have the 8 instants or sorceries we need to cast our commander, we can later cast this, give our commander +8/+0. That means this is a 16/8 creature, 2 hits from our commander, or it could be even more. It could be an instant knockout from one of our opponents if we have 13 instants or sorceries in our graveyard. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video, you're going to love this video right here. I talk about Shirai Shizo's Caretaker. This deck is only $30 and it kicks some serious butt. So be sure to check that out. Thank you to the patrons who help support this show. And if you want to buy this deck, I'll have a link in the description down below for you to purchase it. And when you do, you help out the channel at no additional cost to you. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.